Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. Thank you everyone that submitted questions on this week's Game of Thrones Q&A. Things are kind of back to normal after Comic-Con. The big news right now is actually that Kit Harington was seen in Belfast again. We're on like Kit Harington hair watch again. I don't think that's really big news. I don't think it becomes like really big news until he's seen in Belfast for a long period of time or like really deep in the season. Remember, he signed on to a big movie this summer and he hasn't gone off and filmed that yet. So there will be a period when he is definitely not around. Like he'll have to go shoot that movie at a certain point. If he comes back to Belfast after that, then that's pretty big news. Just remember, whether he comes back to life on the show or whether he stays dead, there are just like so many different ways that they could play with that on the show. His whereabouts don't factor in quite as much as say like the other actors that have to be on screen all the time. So here we go, on to questions. Just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen all of season 5 yet. Kaz asks, for the Q&A, do the Red Priests other than Melisandre, like Thoros, have to sacrifice people in order to increase their powers, or is it just her? Well, Melisandre is a little bit different from some of the other Red Priests in that she's a Shadowbinder. Like, not all the Red Priests are Shadowbinders. They haven't fully explained it in the books yet, but the way I view it is that something needs to be offered to the Red God, something to appease him, and usually when Thoros has done it, someone has died already, so you could view that as an offering. Thoros isn't just like walking around trying to resurrect people on the side of the road. It's usually only after something really tragic happens. You know, like when Beric Dondarrion does something heroic and ends up dying. He died in a tournament, he died fighting the Mountain, all things that you could view as being sacrifice-worthy events. And eventually he even started worshipping the Red God himself. So I think if Melisandre were going to try and resurrect Jon Snow, then the offering has already been made just because he's lying there bleeding out. Next question, Avi asks, it sounds like they're casting some of the Northern Lords, like the Manderleys and the Umbers for Season 6. Do you think they'll rally behind Sansa or Jon and defeat the Boltons? Well, I don't know, beyond Sansa, who's going to be running around in the North fighting the Boltons, but I definitely think the Northern Lords will start working against them. The writers kept beating us over the head with the North remembers line over and over at Winterfell. The North is just going to continue to remember in very stabby ways throughout Season 6. The Boltons have a really huge army, so I wouldn't be surprised if people start to whittle away at that, like the other Northern Lords start to whittle away at that over the course of Season 6. Next question, Mindless asks, do you think that Quaithe will appear again to guide Dany in Season 6? I believe she has a more important role to play in Dany's storyline. Well, there is like a new Red Priestess that they're trying to cast for Season 6. I don't think that's Quaithe, but I think that new person will fill that role. What I mean to say is, I think this new Red Priestess will be a new advisor for Daenerys. But just speaking about book Quaithe, no, I don't think that we're going to see her again on the show. The books are a different story though. I definitely think that she's going to appear again in the books. Next question, James asks, I know the show's only contracted through 7 seasons, but since it's such a success, do you think the showrunners would consider extending the length? Actually, the showrunners have like a pretty hard expiration date in terms of story. Like they pretty clear that they don't want to go to like 10 seasons just because they can. At its current burn rate, the show will get through all the book stuff by the end of season 7, unless they adjust a little bit. HBO itself wants to keep it around as long as possible, so if anyone is going to try and keep it going for longer, it's going to be corporate HBO. I'm sure a lot of the actors would love to continue doing the show, but there are so many of them, and some of them are really starting to blow up. Like, look at Emilia Clarke, for instance. Like, she's starting to do really big mainstream Hollywood movies. She's not going to stick around forever. It's just that when you have so many young actors, it's hard to keep them around for longer than 7 or 8 seasons just because their careers start to take off. And it's really hard for them to take other opportunities whenever they're bound to a show, even if it is only like 10 episodes a season. I think the most realistic solution is that they just start a spin-off during the final season of the show, and it would be with a completely different cast. Walking Dead is kind of in the same situation, where it's like, we have this main show, we think we can keep it going through 12 seasons, but you never know what's going to happen with the cast. They might decide to leave, so we need a spin-off show to hedge our bets. So if anything, they'll continue to be a Song of Ice and Fire content on TV, but maybe not in its current form beyond season 7. Next question, Rad asks, are all worthy Targaryens fireproof like Dany? Jon Snow got burned while fending off a white on the first season, and I'm not sure if that throws a wrench in R plus L equals J. Like you're saying, if Jon is a Targaryen, then how did he get burned? That's actually a myth that Targaryens can't be burned. There's a really big event called the Tragedy at Summerhall, where a bunch of Targaryens died in a fire. There was even a Targaryen king that tried to drink wildfire because he thought he was literally a dragon, as as in blood of the dragon. So no, Targaryens can totally burn just like anybody else. The reason that Daenerys did not burn is because they were using blood magic. So Jon Snow getting burnt has absolutely nothing to do with Targaryen blood. Next question, Morch1 asks, if Aemon is keeping tight notes, would it be possible for Sam to discover them before going to the Citadel? If so, would he tell Jon? Well, Sam has already gone to the Citadel, so he wouldn't be able to tell Jon, even if there were notes. I think that if Sam is going to find anything out at the Citadel, it's going to be techniques for fighting White Walkers. Based on some of the shooting sets and like the Tower of Joy video that I just did, it seems like if the show is going to confirm who Jon Snow's parents are, it's going to be using some sort of flashback mechanism. But that says nothing about what George R. R. Martin is going to do in the books. Eventually he probably will reveal who Jon Snow's parents are in either Winds of Winter or A Dream of Spring. He could use some piece of correspondence left over from when Rhaegar was still alive. Weirwood flashbacks would be like 1,000 times more fun though. Next question, Jon Snow asks, what do you think will happen once Jon has been brought back? Will he leave the Night's Watch and charge to Winterfell or head somewhere else? Well, if you remember, he was trying to get everyone to go to Winterfell originally, so I think, if he came back, everyone would probably just be like, oh, he has a good point, let's listen to him. There's very clearly a White Walker army marching on us. It really wouldn't make sense for Jon to just turn around and murder all those stabby Night's Watch people just because they need every single body they can get. They're already dramatically undermanned, even with all the wildlings. So to turn around and kill half of his existing army would just be a terrible, terrible thing to do. That is, of course, assuming that he's resurrected and he still wants to fight the White Walkers. And all evidence points to that being the case. So I don't think he's going to turn around and stab everyone. If he kills anyone when he comes back, it would be like Alliser Thorne. That would be a lot of fun. You guys can actually let me know whether you agree or not. Would it be more satisfying to see Jon come back to life and then immediately chop Alliser Thorne's head off, or to see Alliser Thorne bend the knee to Jon and say, you were right the whole time, I'm sorry? Next question, Bill Tang asks, now that we get to see the Dothraki hordes again with Dany, would you please do more Dothraki videos? So, just to answer some Dothraki questions, I think it's pretty clear that Daenerys is going to wow them with the dragons. Emilia Clarke has said that she's read a couple scripts and she saw some mind-blowing thing coming. It probably has something to do with her storyline. And one really easy way to win over a giant army is with a flaming dragon flying through the sky like a meteor. It feels like Daenerys only has a couple options in the East right now. She can either get everyone to bend the knee, or she can go on another campaign of conquest, which would be really long and really drawn out. And it seems like the series is trying to push her to Westeros by the final season, and a big protracted campaign would take way longer than that. So I think as the dragons continue to grow, the legend of Daenerys will grow, and she'll win more followers over. She won't have to go around roasting every single city that she meets. So just plan on Daenerys getting a really large Dothraki army before the end of Season 6. Next question, Joanna asks, do you think that we'll finally get to see Edmure and the Blackfish again next season, or are they forever at sea with Gendry? I would say number 2, they're probably not coming back. Edmure, the actor that plays Edmure, is on Outlander right now. He's playing the villain. He's Blackjack, I think is his name. He's a really terrible villain, so it's funny to go back and watch his Game of Thrones scenes. No, I don't think they'll be back. There are a lot of storylines all over Westeros that have seemingly been dropped, throughout the 5 seasons. I think before we get our final episode in our final season, they'll at least touch base on some of the running storylines that seemingly have no conclusion. The show will at least try to address all the important stuff. But don't be wildly surprised if you never see him again. Next question, Noel asks, could you make a video about where the hell Rickon is? Maybe some predictions as to whether or not he'll be involved in Season 6. Well, we actually know where Rickon is. He's on the Isle of Skagos. It's by Eastwatch by the Sea, hiding out with Osha. The show might put him with one of the other Northern Lords, just hiding out. Some people who are still loyal to the Starks. In terms of the actor coming back on the show proper, I don't think that we'll see him again until he's useful for the narrative. And as of right now, he's not that useful because Sansa's still alive. If Sansa were to die, then Rickon would be the next in line, the next Stark left alive. And if people knew about that, they would try to keep him safe till he was old enough to try and take back Winterfell. It'd be like a tangent storyline for young Griff in the books, like that type of narrative where he hides out for a number of years till he's old enough to rally a force behind him. But based on the amount of time that we have left on the show, I don't think that Rickon is going to be of any use to anyone. So just do not plan on seeing Rickon again on the show, at least before the finale. I'm sure if Sansa were to ever retake Winterfell, then she would go looking for Rickon. Thank you so much, though, everyone, for submitting questions. These are always a ton of fun to do. Hopefully I answered most of the big questions. I think everyone's still kind of on Kit Harington hair watch, so we're all wondering what's going on with that. They're going to be shooting Game of Thrones all the way through November, I think, through the end of the year, so there's still a lot of stuff to come. Congratulations to this week's giveaway winner, too. Jacqueline Lamb, you win a $20 Amazon gift card. Just be sure to message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact info. Next week's giveaway will start whenever I post my next Game of Thrones bonus video. That's probably going to be something from Jaime Lannister's history, just because I haven't talked about him in a little while. I feel like what's happening with Myrcella right now is going to drive him in a really interesting direction, especially considering what Cersei's doing at King's Landing. If there are any other bonus videos that you guys want me to do, just leave your requests in the comments below. So just in case you guys haven't seen it, I just did a video kind of explaining the Tower of Joy and why everyone's going so crazy about it in Season 6 in the show right now. You can click here to watch that, and you can click here to learn all about Arthur Dayne. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.